Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions. This is our first birthday show as well. We've made it to a year. We're not alone either this week. We have been joined by almost the rest of the Essex Massive for this week's Opinions. Guys, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves rather than me doing it. So, to my right.
Okay. By default. Justin Mason, 1970s boy. You've all heard me far too much on the Beer O'Clock show, so I popped up today.
Yeah, it's been a while since we rested you for a year or so.
You did.
Didn't we?
I came back by popular demand at one point.
Yeah, after many appearances. And we've got somebody making their second appearance.
Yeah,
on
second.
Opinions.
Me, Matt Chinnery, aka Half Pint Gent. Second time. Didn't get told to stay away after the first one, so must be alright.
Welcome, guys.
And this is, as I say, it's a bit of a special show for us tonight because it is almost a year to the day since we released.
Yesterday was the exact
year?
It came up on my Facebook feed, didn't it?
Yeah. So almost a year to the day since we released the first Opinions. Still going strong. Just starting season 4 now. And to celebrate our birthday, Mr. Mason here let us raid his cellar.
Indeed.
Didn't you? You sent us a list of what? There must be about 30 beers on the list.
Yeah, I had a quick scan around to see what I could get my hands on quickly on Saturday evening and put it out. I think late Saturday or early Sunday. Late Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah, just to get you to have a few choices. Luckily, I have some good ones quite near the top. Let's drink them.
Excellent.
Well, we're fine with that.
Yeah,
not a problem.
Looking at the beers that are on the table, and we'll get to them as we get to them, I think, rather than announce what they are. So the first one we've got is the one that we opened the show with. Sierra Nevada Bigfoot Barley Wine Style Ale and this was from 2013. What are your thoughts about this one?
I'm really enjoying it. It's very soft.
Yeah,
Very soft.
surprisingly soft.
I mean, Justin already mentioned it when we started up. Real big notes of brown sugar, but it's not cloying, is it? It's really smooth.
It's not chewy.
No, it actually just smells and tastes and feels like it's just aged well rather than gone.
Yeah.
Because I've had a few American barley wine style, because that's what it says, isn't it? Barley wine style.
Yeah.
Rather than be barley wine.
It's a US style
yeah,
barley wine.
and it just started to go and it's just going to be a bit of a sweet mess. Whereas this hasn't done that at all. I would never have thought about aging this though.
So you've had this one for 4 years.
Yes.
And you were saying you bought a few of these when you got it. Have you had any of that batch previous to now?
No, I bought these specifically to age.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll come to that then.
Yeah, we'll come on to that because that's
I would never have
topic,
thought about doing that.
as well. So let's start off because we have been off air with the regular podcast for about
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah, we've put some other content out while I've been off air, but in that time quite a lot has happened. So
yeah, we missed it all.
we did miss it all, but we'll come on to all of that as well. Just do a quick roundup of what we've all been up to over the summer. So, Martin, you go for it, mate, because I know you've got quite the list.
I had a few. So just a top 5 for me, in no particular order in the best run of the game shows. So basically a weekend in London at the mid-August, centred around GBBF, but also went to the Kernel tap taker at Brewdog, where I got to sample lots of fantastic Kernel beers, and that was with family, friends and Michelle for the whole weekend as well. Leeds International Beer Festival, that went to on Friday with yourself, Steve, and with listener of the show, Clayton, our art director, creative talent.
Yes.
And Chapel Beer Festival with Michael, followed up soon after the Leeds International Beer Festival. Never going to be the most exciting beer selection at the Chapel Beer Festival, but the Saturday afternoon is a bit of a tradition for me and Michael.
I've got a question about that. So I heard that they usually take all the trains out the old train shed.
Yeah.
I heard they weren't doing that this year.
Yeah.
Did it affect the festival?
It did for me, because basically they have 2 sheds: the good shed and the restoration shed. The restoration shed is where all their hard work goes on. But talking to a few people there, because I popped in on Tuesday night, it takes a month to clear it out, then you festival for 5 days, and then a month to get it all back together. So basically they lose 2 months of work for a 5-day festival. So they had a marquee up in front, but for me it did lose a little bit of its
magic.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that sets it apart. I've gone to loads of beer festivals under a marquee. Me and Michelle also did a Friday night out in South London a few weeks ago. Popped into 4 Pure, Brew by Numbers and Bolt Shop, and had some fantastic beers in all 3 of those places. And the new tap room at Brew by Numbers is lovely. Really worth a visit. Really nice. And finally, Adnams Meet the Brewer Night at the Rumsey Wells in Norwich, where Ed Razzle was there presenting a few beers, including a version of Ghost Ship, quaintly titled Double Ghost Ship, which I was rather excited about.
And how was it?
I enjoyed it. The only thing, it was probably a little bit under attenuated, and Ed admitted it. Trying to get the balance right and getting ready for the festival for that evening as well. But I still enjoyed it. Still had a lot of Ghost Ship characteristics. Just didn't quite have that same life that the really good cask version has. So that's my beer adventures. I've got a few beers, but I'm going to let someone else speak for a minute.
Okay. Who's going next? Matt, been up to much this summer?
Yeah, loads. But I'm gonna do a couple, some of the highlights. I did 2 events at the Prince, both for Matt Curtis's. One as press, one as paid. There was De La Seine for a dinner, the Belgian brewery, which was excellent, and Magic Rock, which was brilliant. The whole night was great. The best thing was the amount of cask beer from Magic Rock, and it was like a delight to try some of those beers. I think they were first times trying those on cask, so that was
the
that was
Magic
great.
Rock and food pairing?
It was, yeah. They're really good events. I like the way that Matt sets it up. He kind of hosts the night, but kind of directs where it's going. So he'll say a couple of things, and then the guest, which was Richard from Magic Rock, will just talk, and then you have the food. Yeah, it was great. It was well worth the money when I paid it, and I'll definitely go back again. I also went to the Brew by Numbers new tap room the other Friday night with my friend, and I thought it was great.
It's lovely space, isn't it?
Really good. Other than that, just going to lots of different pubs and kind of falling in love with the pub again.
Justin, anything from you?
Yes, I've done my usual tour of Essex pubs and breweries over the summer with the family. Go out for a visit somewhere. I was up near you the other day, Steve, in Whittam, Crescent Temple Barns. We went up there a bit. I've been up there a few times. And we
Not
got
much
to
around there though.
No, you can. If you're heading back this way, then yeah, if you go by Chelmsford and up and across, there's a few pubs dotted about. I had a pint of Ridley's Right, the Bishop Nick, that was runner-up in the Great British Beer Festival. To be perfectly honest, I didn't think an awful lot of it. Bishop Nick do much better beers, to be perfectly honest with you. So it was pleasant enough, but I had better beer. Went up with the family. Went up to Tate Modern, called in by a craft beer, and we finished at Mason Company just for food. Me and my wife and the 2 kids, and it just so happened to be a Northern Monk tap takeover, and I didn't know, honestly, did not know it was there.
Did the family believe that? Come on.
Absolutely, yes. But
no way the family believed that.
My wife would have been sure, because I would have been on about it all day. We must go there, and I just did, because I actually gave her the option. Should we go home, or do you want to go somewhere? She went, no, we go there. The kids will like it, and they did. To be perfectly honest,
it's a nice space, isn't it?
It is a lovely space.
What was the weather like when you went there?
I was nice and sun.
Yeah, because you're looking out onto the River Lee as well, aren't you? So,
yeah, we did sit inside with my daughter. Yeah. It was quite busy, as you'd expect. The outside tables were taken quite a thing, but it's nice and open. They had the front doors open and it blew in. Again, bump into Matt Curtis, who tends to turn up everywhere.
Oh, actually, I forgot that. I bumped into him, Brew by Numbers as well.
Wherever he is, it's sort of like this Jack in the Box. He pops up wherever you are. They had quite an interesting summer holiday this year. We booked it a couple of days before, but we flew into Budapest. Fantastic beer scene in Budapest. Really blown away by the friendliness of the Hungarian people.
Spectacular city, isn't it?
Oh, it's an amazing city. And they know their beer, and they're really good at brewing it.
I went there for my brother's stag night in 2012, and we didn't drink anything other than lager. And then watched England lose to Italy on penalties. It was fab.
I was drinking sours. I drank a beer that was brewed with thyme. Bloke pulled this beer, and this sour brewed with, I think, was 6 kilos of thyme in this 40
Oh
barrel
my
brew.
God.
It was seriously heavy, but it was actually really, really balanced, surprisingly. And yeah, they've gone for the murky thing. They've gone for sours. I drank this fantastic beer called Mango Bay, which was essentially a mango blast on a digestive biscuit. So it was the perfect like breakfast shake of a beer. It was gorgeous. Sitting there looking over the Danube, drinking this beer in the sun. Lots of stuff, some lovely people there. Vienna I liked as well. Not so much the people, but if you went a bit further out, there were some lovely brew pubs further out, and a place called Mel's in the city, which was really accommodating to us. And then went on to Prague. But there's not really much beer in Prague, is there?
No,
So
Prague,
really,
actually a dry
it's
city.
really dull. Yeah, but I drank a lot
Some
of beer.
of the places you visited, especially in Vienna and Budapest, look fantastic. Some of those bars.
Oh, amazing.
So didn't you win the last prize off the back of one of those?
I did. That's Mel's in Vienna. So that's
Yes.
Vienna.
Yeah. And now holds it for
Yeah.
posthumous.
A bit like the Jules Rimet trophy.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
What about you, Steve?
Well, in comparison to all that, I did pretty much fuck all.
You drank lots of Carling though.
I drank lots of Carling. The curse of the British holiday camp, unfortunately.
Didn't Carfest have Fuller's Pride?
Carfest seemed to be sponsored by the bars. Seemed to be sponsored by Fuller's. So they were essentially selling it. Your two options were Frontier Lager or Unfiltered Pride. And I had a couple of pints of Unfiltered Pride, and actually out in the wild, on a hot day in the middle of a field, it's pretty much the perfect pint. So you can take almost everything I've said about it before, and you know, when it's actually put out there and you end up drinking it, it actually does the job.
Especially with a few other options as well.
Yeah, very very few other options. That was about it. Apart from going to Leeds Beer Festival.
So come on, I did so much about it. What did you think, Leeds?
Great as always. Everything about it seemed to be absolutely perfect. From the fact that from the moment that you were queuing, there were people coming around, putting your wristbands on, getting you ready to go in when it opened. Then they were selling tokens in the queue as well. So the minute the doors opened, you were in, and you were able to maximise your time.
How far did we get?
We got as far as the first tent, which was strategically placed just after the entrance, which was a fantastic circus tent that Magic Rockets had set up. So it was like the Magic Rock tent.
We got about 5 metres, didn't we?
So that was where we had our first beer, and then we had a good look around. We went down and looked in the dungeons down in the old Leeds Town Hall. And I really like the setup of the festival. I like the vibe of it. It just felt really laid back and chilled, and it never at any point felt as though it was too busy.
No, I think because it's got lots of the offshoots.
Yeah.
You're not in just one area. But no, it definitely works for me. I'll definitely go back to it.
Yeah. So quite a quiet summer for me. I did also do a couple of weeks just off the booze at the beginning of it as well. So I just felt as though I wanted to give my body a bit of a rest.
Yeah, I think I'll give it up for a week as well.
Yeah.
So any beery highlights? So you've done the adventures. Any top beers, guys? Any beers that really stand out during the summer?
I had Siren, is it Yulu, the tea beer on cask? That was really good.
And cask.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've read a lot of good things about it in cask, and it all lived up to that. I thought it was. I don't usually like tea beers either, and I actually quite like that.
Yeah, you're not a fan, are you, Steve? Usually the tea beers.
Really.
I have to admit, I don't mind them. I'm a tea drinker. I prefer the coffee beers.
We wasn't massively sold when
No.
we tried it on the show last season either. But we did say that we felt as though it's one of those beers that could very much have its place on a hot day.
Yeah.
You know, you could drink loads
On
of it.
tap.
Yeah.
Definitely. Anything else?
I also went to the Great British Beer Festival. I think my favourite beer of the day was St Austell's Big Job. That's the stronger version of
Proper
Proper
job.
Job.
Yeah.
Big job. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
The biggest
I had
one.
that. I had that one that day. It's nice.
Yeah,
I
that
do
was
like it.
by far my favourite, I think.
What about you, Justin? Any beers that stood out?
Yes, I had. Went to a local beer festival week before last, and drinking local brewery, Brentwood's Brewery, Mango Unchained on cask.
Ooh,
That was very good.
I had that as well.
Yeah, I
at
had
the
Chelmsford.
Chelmsford Beer Festival. Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Very
My wife
drinkable.
had slightly too much of the Mango Unchained, so we'll draw a line under that.
She was steamed.
Hey! Whoa! Hang on, there's no need for that, is there?
Thank you for saying that. Over in Hungary, apart from the mad scientist, the Raketi beer lab, which was a lemon and yuzu edge sour, which was really tart and delicious. Close to home, Dark Stars, not into yoga. Have you had that?
No.
That's
Pina colada.
really good. Yeah, coconut tropical fruit punch, excellent. And surprisingly, when I was over at Ales by Mail, have you seen the Discworld beer, the Drum Brewing's L-Space Voyager?
I tend to avoid all Discworld beers.
It's new brewery, right?
Yeah, they're brewing with Ramsgate. I've done it with them. It's there. But it's a peanut and banana Hefeweizen, and it's really clean and crisp, but you can pick out the peanut and the banana. It's really, really well brewed.
What about you, Steve? Any highlights?
Kentucky Common Grounds.
Okay, I'll cross that one on my list of ones to mention.
Which has been a beer that I've had on my wish list for a while now. And this is the Kentucky Bourbon barrel-aged version of Magic Rock's Common Grounds, which they only do on keg and cask. As far as I know, they've no intentions of doing it in small packages at the moment. So
we had it kegged, didn't we?
We had it kegged, and I was thrilled that when we walked into that circus tent on Friday afternoon, it was on, and I was literally like, "Gimme!"
That was beer number one.
Yeah, and it was every bit as amazing as I hoped it would be.
It was superb.
It was just Common Grounds multiplied by this beautiful, soft sweetness from the barrel aging.
And only 1% more. Is that only up to 7% as well?
Yeah, still really low ABV for the beer that it is.
Yeah.
But literally, if I could have gone higher than 5 on Untapped, I would have done because it was that good.
No, I didn't. I went up to 4.25,
Okay.
which for me.
Which is you're more conservative. I tend to get very excited.
But it was a beer worth getting excited over. To be fair.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
assume they've just taken Common Grounds and put it into bourbon barrels for 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's been in there for long.
It does seem to be a brew that's coming out fairly regularly as well. And what they've also done, and what I'm currently drinking at home as well, is they've then given the barrels back to Darkwoods Coffee to put coffee beans in for them to age back in the barrels that their coffee has been used in. So I've currently got the coffee at home as well.
As though coffee from Two Brews.
Yeah.
I've seen that concept before. I think that's a really good idea.
And it's the coffee's amazing. It's just got this kind of you're getting all the flavours in there, and then there's just this kind of soft vanilla flavour comes through at the end. It's absolutely perfect. It's a great little idea that they're doing.
I'm writing this down. It's going on the list.
Recycling all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean that was on my list. That was number one on my list of beers to mention. I had the Living End bourbon barrel version on tap at the bottle shop from Buxton, and that was beautiful.
Yeah, that made your beer of the month list last month, didn't it?
That was lovely.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. That was. Sticking with the high ABVs, the Imperial Brown Stout London 1856 from Kernel. I had that at the tap takeover at Brewdog. I mean that comes in at 10.1%, but again, like most beers from Kernel, it's just superbly drinkable beer, and you're only having a third, so you convince yourself it's okay. Jaipur X in bottle. This iteration is lovely. I think it's really fresh and lovely. You're shaking your head.
I'm not.
You were shaking your head.
I'm not. I was doing I'm in an R in head.
Come on.
Which was kind of more of a wobble than a shake.
Okay.
Which is all great audio content.
Yes.
For the
people
listeners,
love the wobbling and shaking,
isn't it? Yeah. I still wasn't that fussed.
Really?
By it.
I thought this was the best I've tasted it. For me, I upped the score. I may have gone over 4 again.
Wow.
And then at Chapel they had Citra from Oakham, which made a wonderful last beer of the afternoon. I'd resisted going there because I'd seen it a bit earlier. I thought, shall I? Yeah, I'm going to have it now. So Citra, 4.2% from Oakham. Oh, lovely.
Did it for you.
Oh yeah, it always tastes good though, doesn't it?
Classic.
Yeah.
It's not a bad send-off beer, though, is it?
No, exactly. So yeah, that's the beer adventures and highlights of it.
It is now. Not wishing to drag out what's going to be an already long show. And anyway,
People must have expected it after 6 weeks.
They must have done, yeah. We should probably do
crack open another beer.
number 2 before we get into the next part of the show. I reckon.
As we like to call Justin, Dad, what are we having next?
We're going to go for the JW Lee's Harvest Ale. I would advise rinsing your glasses out, actually.
So we all chose one of these each, didn't
Yeah,
we?
so
from the list.
Yeah, so Justin sent us a list and we sort of said what one we'd want from it. So this is the JW Lee's Hardies or
Harvest Ale.
Harvest
yeah,
Ale.
they release it every year. Basically, they take the best hops from the year. I make it into a beautiful barley white. Now, I can't remember how long.
Now don't the folk in America go nuts for this bit?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they get it about. I think they get it. It's already 2 years old before they get it.
Yeah.
I can't remember how long they age this for.
But when they send it out there, it sells out, doesn't it?
Yeah, but over here it's kind of like almost.
Well, yeah, 'cause
no
isn't that
one
very
knows about
quiet.
it.
Isn't
Yeah.
that one of the beers when we've the Beernomical when they've been talking to that trader guy? That beer's come up more than once,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky enough to get sent down a couple of bottles by Connor, and he sent me a 14 and a 15, and I think I've done the 15. I think I've still got the 14 to drink.
And sorry, did you say what year this one was, Justin?
2010.
Have you got
I
an older
didn't say
one?
that. I have got an older one somewhere.
What's your oldest?
2006 somewhere.
So, and this is your choice, isn't it? This
Yeah,
the first
this
beer
is
that
what
we
you-
had. First beer that we had was Matt's choice.
Yep.
We've all chosen one, and there are a couple of other bottles on the table in case we run out of beer and we're still talking, which is
Quite
a
likely.
fair likelihood
Yeah.
this evening. So it's very fair. So
This is 11.5%. This is obviously a classic British barley wine.
Different nose.
Oh yeah, it's a bit more earthen.
That's what I was going to say. Definitely a bit
Straw.
more earthy.
I'll get cake.
See, I'm getting lots of fruit cake,
Yeah.
plums, raisins, prunes.
I'm not getting. I can't get all of that.
Don't you?
One at a time.
Oh, Justin, we've missed you. From anybody that remembers Justin from his appearances on the Beer O'Clock show, this man knows how to describe a beer.
Oh, there's so much going on in here. There's licorice, there's port notes.
I'll get in the port notes. Anyway, should we? Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you again.
So I don't know if I said it's 11.5%. So it's no
We're-
slouch.
We've got nice small ABV beers tonight.
But fortunately, it's fit between a few of us. And it's a small bottle.
It's a very small bottle. Ooh, I'm not sure about that.
The aroma is very nice.
There's something not quite right.
Yeah.
Is it?
Right. Yeah, I suppose we can come to this bit, but for me, it's not quite hitting the spot like the first one.
No, it's making me pull face.
It is.
Yeah. So on that, let's get into. Now we're going to do two lots of news
Yes.
this week because we're going to do the news that kind of all happened the week after we stopped recording.
About 2 days after we stopped recording.
Yeah. Lots happened over the summer, and then we're going to cover off some more recent news. And in the interest of trying to keep this quite short, I'm going to let everybody have a view on this, but let's try and treat it like a tweet. So let's try and keep it to about 140 characters. Okay, so here's a roundup of the things we missed this summer. The Great British Beer Festival, good or bad?
Mixed. See my blog
Okay.
in the show notes.
Now, you two went, didn't you? So again, pointing, not working
No.
for audio listeners. Martin and Matt, you both went to GBBF.
Yeah.
Justin and I, we didn't
go,
We
no.
didn't go this year. So I'm only going to be basing my opinions on what I've read from others and what I saw on Twitter. But so you guys have maybe got a more. I've already gone over 140 characters here.
Yes.
You guys have maybe got a more informed view on the festival.
My view, I started the blog I wrote. I started off by saying I was a bit sad, and so I took a few weeks before I wrote it. Still felt a bit sad about it. I didn't not enjoy it, but I didn't love it. And my feelings of previous GBBFs over the years, up until the last couple of years, that I'd always loved it. I came away thinking, but I didn't really love it.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to this side of the table now then. Again, pointing, still not working. Justin, have you got any views on it, having not been?
I do. Now, unsurprisingly. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that the GBBF is, when you go, you think, oh, I wish I would have gone. But this year, less so. Even though I did have tickets for the trade section, I wasn't actually, unfortunately, I was unable to go. But I think what's killing the GBBF is we're now used to the small festivals like Indie Man and Leeds, where it's cosy, it's intimate, there's good beer wherever you go.
And it's also about the beer. GBBF at Olympia has a lot of space devoted to no beer. It's big. I love Olympia as a building. It's just so big.
Do we now really need Oliver Reed t-shirts and funny hats and that sort of thing at beer festivals?
Not for us, no. But it's always going to be there, I think.
I think so.
But
But
even that, I don't mind that sort of stall there, but they've got so much space given over to not the beer. And I think I read a very good post today from Bourbon Bailey.
I was going to come on to that, yeah.
And that was, again, they'd obviously, I think they'd done the same as me, they'd taken a bit of time before they wrote it. So there wasn't they hadn't sort of spun a load of stuff out, they'd sat back a bit, looked at it, and they'd written a post about what they think, what their feelings were, but also a few points about what they feel may make it better. And I agree with most of it, to be honest. And one of the big things is just the space. And you alluded to it, Justin, by saying about Indie Man and Leeds. Those spaces are a lot more intimate than Olympia. If you're going to, and presumably if you have to, maybe you have to hire the whole of Olympia, then you have to fill it. And they don't seem to be able to fill it all with beer, so they fill it with a lot of other things. But it's cavernous. And especially when you're going there with people who aren't that fussed about traipsing around, you end up just plonking yourself in one place. And if you aren't going to traipse around, you may be gone for 15 minutes.
But the Boken Bailey post seemed to sum up a lot of other people's points as well and views, because I thought it was an excellent read.
It was a very well reasoned, well put out post.
Because I mean, we spoke about this on the way to Leeds on the train last week, and we were saying some of the things that we need to change, and I think we mentioned a couple of the things that appeared in that post in terms of, well, if you've got brewery bars, maybe they should be manned by staff that actually work for the brewery
and
so
can
about
the beer.
Talk to you about the beers. And again, no saying about the smaller festivals, but interestingly they also included within that the rise of the beer week as well, now being something that's giving people much more choice and option when it comes to how they try new beers. And I think it was a very well reasoned post.
And I agree with what they said. That I think the condition of the beer has got better as well. So the actual beers themselves from cask, I would say even 5 years ago, could suffer from being over-vented, not looked after, not cared for quite so nicely. But I found all the beers I had, it wasn't so much about the beers.
And you went on a Saturday, right?
I went to the Saturday afternoon, which has got to be one of the most popular days.
So when did you go, Matt? Did you go to trade
I went to
session?
trade session, yeah.
And what were your thoughts from there?
Trade day is completely different to the rest of the festival, so it's hard to maybe give a true representation of it, because I think the trade day is more about meeting friends in industry more so than the festival. I do think it is still special. I think it's huge for the general public and people that aren't into beer as much as we are. I think it's a good place to go exploring, but I don't think it's a great representation of where the British beer scene is at the moment. This might be an unpopular choice. I would drop the American beers, I would drop the Boston bar, I would drop the Czech beers.
Yes.
And I would put a key keg bar in for English beers.
Yes.
And I don't see why. And Canberra's views on key keg is changing, and I think surely that's the next step that they need to look at really for that festival.
It is the Great British Beer Festival after all, so I think that's been said quite a few times. You see, when I've been recently, once or twice, when I've been recently, I'm in the privileged position that I get a trade ticket every year. So I've been on trade day, and as Matt said, it's an industry jolly. You go around, you meet up with the same friends. Now I appreciate that a lot of your listeners don't have that opportunity to go and speak to people.
And I've never been on the trade session.
No, but
I've been every other day of the week, in every other session.
I'm sorry to jump in, but what I don't think does the industry any good is the day after the trade session, everybody that's been on essentially a free ticket is bemoaning that festival.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's disgraceful, because you go on that ticket, and we've all done it. We've all done it. Sat around this table, we get sent stuff, we review stuff, and it's like we maybe don't give it the best of reviews, or we maybe give it not a bad time, a hard time. But I wouldn't take a free ticket to an event and then do nothing but bitch about that event the following day. I'd at least try and find a few positives about it, and And again, make people aware that you've actually been on a freebie as well.
Yeah. See, it's quite good because I generally go with my wife and maybe one or two other friends who are not in the industry, and their perspective is what keeps me sane, because I don't get mixed up in the melee and the mob around the European beer or the American cask beer. They want to go and try different beers, so it does get you away from that scrum. It's so probably my view isn't the best view to have on that. I don't know if you read Pete Brown's blog about it.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very well written post. You could take one of two ways.
Very good piece of satire.
Yes.
Very, very good piece of satire.
It was a very good piece of satire. Okay, well, in the interest of the 140 character tweet, how about item number 2?
Yeah, we felt drastically
well
there. So it's kind of linked to item number 1, which was in the days, I think it was leading up to the GBB, I thought it was just the days after, Marble had a massive public falling out with Camera over their beers not appearing at the GVBF, and it got to the point where both parties had written open letters in industry publications to one another, basically pointing out each other's faults. Thoughts on this one?
Well, I don't really understand how the beers get chosen, and maybe Matt or maybe Justin might be able to tell me, but it never feels like the best British beers are represented anyway. For whatever reason, I read both posts, but neither of them are stuck in my head, to be honest, because I thought it was a bit tit for tat. But I failed to see how Marble can't be part of the Great British Beer Festival.
That's what I struggle with the most.
So if I look at that, and within the last week or so, I think I had the email from Camera where you get to start the voting process for the Champion Beer Britain, and you can only vote for beers that come under your region, I think.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
And really, to be honest, there are, and I come under North Essex, there are some nice beers, but if I had a free open vote of cask beers that I could vote for across the UK, probably none of them would make it.
I think that's a fair point, yeah.
So I should be able to vote for any beers I like. And again, it comes back to Matt's earlier point, probably doesn't represent just the great British beer scene as it is now, which there is a number of great British beers, even just in cask.
I think it's madness that Marble weren't represented, because if you think about cask beer in Manchester, one of your first thoughts after kind of some of the big ones like Lees, who occupy quite a big part of that territory, certainly for the likes of the four of us around the table, we would instantly think, well, Marble are making fantastic beers and they do great cask beers, but yet they weren't represented at the Great British Beer Festival.
So I thought it was a bit tit for tat, but they should have been there.
Yeah. Any views on this one?
I'm the same, really, and going back to my original comment, they should have been there, and if you drop the others, then there's space for more British breweries to be there. So.
Yeah, I'm with consensus here. Yeah, there's no question that they should have been there. I mean, name calling's not ideal, but there's ways of doing it. But why not? If you can't get, they've tried. From what I gather, they tried other methods and they just weren't being heard. So call it out for what it is.
Yeah. And that seems to be the way of going at the moment. If you're not happy about something, call it out on social media. Yeah. Which we'll come on to in a couple of weeks, because we're going to be doing
a show centred all around that.
We are indeed, yeah. So
before we move on though, can we talk about this beer? Because I might need something else soon.
Okay, do we have to?
Not loving it.
Me either. See, it's quite a struggle.
Yeah, I when I say I'm not loving it, I'm probably not finishing it.
See, I'm loving it more the further I go down. I took a massive gulp of it, I must admit, just to try and get it. And
the aroma doesn't match up with the flavour.
I like it on the nose.
The nose is lovely, but the aroma seems to be fooling me.
I'm getting really sweet, sticky toffee pudding in the taste.
No.
With a big lump of ginger in the end, which is really
I'm getting a lot of ginger, but it's like that's all I'm getting.
It's stem ginger in the end, which it strikes a really odd note.
Yeah, there was something at the end that I couldn't pick out. I think that is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well we can save some of the other bits for when we get into the opinions bit, but I just wanted to see where everyone else was, and I'm not loving it.
No, I'm just going to take one more sweet before I dump it.
I'm going to do one of those odd things and put it into a glass and give it away. Do you want the rest of it, Justin?
I will have some of it. Yeah,
I
think. Thank you.
So 1.5. Perhaps I won't down it quite just yet.
So it's coming on a nice link there actually to beers that you struggle with. The next big thing that kicked off was Omnipollo released a series of milkshake beers in cans that apparently were getting sold for quite a high premium up and down the land. I think they were about 10, 12 quid a can. To an instant backlash on Twitter of these beers aren't ready. Their response was to advise bottle shops and owners of the cans to cellar them for a month because they weren't ready. No apology made, none given.
Has nothing else happened since then? Because
it's all gone quiet.
Yeah, now I wasn't paying that much attention to it, I have to admit. But the bit I did pay attention to is when they said that bottle shops or people who bought them should just hold on to them for a while. And I thought, well, shouldn't you just put them out when they're ready?
Yeah. And I think that was what a lot of people commented on was, well, you've expected people to pay an absolute premium for these beers. They should be ready when they go out, not to sell them to people and then they've got to essentially do your job for you of finishing them in your fridge.
Yeah. What do you two think?
I completely missed this one, so this is actually the first I've heard of it, so
Really?
I have no comment on it whatsoever.
Okay.
I don't know where I was at this point.
There's honesty for you.
I must admit, I did see this was all happening while I was away, and I glossed over it a bit. Yes, they shouldn't be out when they're ready. I would also argue the same instance with the double ghost ship. Should that have been on there at that night if it wasn't
I
ready?
think it's a fair point.
Just to meet an event.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Sometimes it's a braver brewer that says, I'm sorry, I know we've advertised the event
Just wasn't
but beer wasn't ready and we'd rather not put it out.
But I had this.
Yeah.
No, brewing items could put out something else.
Okay.
So you can. There's degrees. Yes, it's probably there's not quite the same. Ed was trying to rush for an event, and it was slightly under 10 weight.
It was one.
It wasn't
It was
way
one
off. It wasn't
30 people.
Yeah, that was a week or so off. It wasn't a month, and you brewed a huge batch, and it was in a can.
And only paid a £5 for a ticket. I got half a pint.
Which I'm very curious to see how cans would cellar anyway, because the idea about cellaring a beer is you've got a set amount of oxygen in a beer, and the oxygen will react with the beer. There's some oxygen getting out with a can. Surely a can is a sealed unit, which is why you have tins of food and stuff that keep for a long time. If it's a pasteurised beer, which I believe these beers were, is it going to make any difference?
It is almost a month on now, so it'll be interesting to see.
I haven't seen anyone.
Maybe we'll commit to having a look on Twitter over the next week and see if anyone's drinking them now.
Have a look on tap.
And see if they've
improved.
improved. Let's do a quick one before we get on to the final one then. So there was a bit of deadline day action as well with brewers moving to new breweries. So Dave Kerr left Northern Monk to take up a position at Wylam, and then probably the big news of the summer transfer window was Colin Strong moving from Buxton to then occupy that position at Northern Monk. That one came a little bit out of the blue.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I was watching Sky Sports News and transfer deadline day, and I didn't see it come up myself.
What did Harry Redknapp say in the car about
At the car window, right there, the car window. He's a lovely chap, that boy.
Make great wine.
I think so did Dave Kerr moving on prompt their bid for Colin?
I don't know.
Or did their bid for Colin prompt Dave moving on?
Who knows? Who knows?
Transfer speculation.
It's an interesting move because obviously
Is this the first sort of transfer that we've now got to the star brewers moving around, haven't we?
I think it
I've
of
seen
maybe
this
such big
before.
named brewers
In the UK
as well.
I don't think it happens that often.
I think let's be honest. I think Buxton are possibly where they are because of Colin's time there.
Definitely a big part of it.
They were brewing good beers before Colin arrived, and then all of a sudden they've had years of brewing great beers, and now Colin moves on to join the ever growing Northern Monk as well. It leaves an interesting question as to are we going to see changes in those core beers from those breweries because of these moves and these individuals wanting to put their own stamp on a new job.
Yeah, I'm sure that they will one day, and they'll create their own new beers as well to add to the lineup. But it was interesting, but it really did seem to catch a lot of people's attention, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts there, guys?
Not really.
No.
Is it a money thing?
It may well be.
Well, like Neymar to PSG.
Yeah. Is it a money thing? Is it a time thing? Is it working hours. I don't know. I'd need to know more of the story really before I could have a valid comment. Good luck to both parties. Really, I'm looking forward to some cracking beers from both breweries and still from Buxton.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
That's my main thing. There's still going to be great beers from both. So,
and Steve's hoping Axe Edge remains unchanged.
I am absolutely. And then the final one is the one that actually ended up making the national press as a result of this, and this was the 13 quid pint. So
It made the sun.
It did make the sun. Yeah, this was a tweet from regular listener Katrina at Katrinas, who happened to make a comment that she had spotted Cloudwater on, I think it was £13.40 for a pint at the Rake in Borough Market. Now, there's been a hell of a lot said about this, so I don't think we need to go
repeat it
over it. The question I want to ask is, who's at fault here? Is it the Rake for selling it at that much? Is it down to, as the Rake blamed the distributors for putting their markup on it? Cloudwater had a say about it, but it's since come out that Cloudwater have a pricing policy and a minimum buy policy. Or is it the punter's fault? Is it our fault for actually paying this much for beer? Now,
I'm going to let one of the guys have a view first of all. Justin and Matt?
I don't think it's anyone's fault.
yeah, all I'm going to say is I must have missed a headline about the house wine costing £7 a bottle in most bars, so that is me done on that pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I said at the start, if we'd had this story 2 days after it come out, I reckon we would have hammered it to death. But taking a step back with a bit of perspective, 3 or 4 weeks on,
died off a little bit, hasn't it?
don't care. If you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't. The fact that Cloudwater feel they're in a position to do the minimum pricing and minimum order, that's up to them. The Rake has always been a bit pricier than some of the other bars around there, in my opinion. And if Punter wants to pay that much, fine. But chances are you're generally not going to order it in a pint anyway. So
yeah.
It was amusing reading it in the Sun because they did a bit of a comparison of the top 5 what turned out craft beers prices per pint when they did, the measuring up versus a pint of Ruddles, Carlsberg, Carling, Green King IPA, Doombar, that kind of thing. So, hey, give a bit of publicity to people.
And all parties involved.
Yeah,
I think as well.
What did you think in the end?
I'm probably along the same sort of lines of you that it's. I mean, the Rake is a pricey bar anyway.
Yeah.
So and because I first saw it and then I retweeted it and I was like, I can't believe that this sort of price is going on. And at that point, I didn't know where it had come from. And it then came out that it was at the Rake, and obviously they then made their statement the following day. But I think sometimes bars don't do themselves any favours in putting the prices up. All of the prices, because like you say, you wouldn't drink a pint of 9% double IPA anyway.
You'd actively discourage them from trying.
So why advertise it available in a pint at 13 quid a pint and let people work out that they're going to have to pay £6.50 for half a pint?
Yeah. So for me, I probably would have hammered it a bit more if it'd been earlier on. But standing back, a bit of perspective, I'm probably still not going to pay £30 for a pint, but I might pay £6.50 for a half or £4 something for a third. I'm sure I have done.
I'm sure I have done.
Didn't you get quoted in the Morning Advertiser?
Yeah, Steve. He's all at sea tweet.
Yeah.
I think they
sees that.
I think they put it on a picture, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. My moment of fame getting involved in this little spat.
Nice bit of
One thing
noise,
I did bring out of it, the Rake were quite quick to blame everyone else. I did see, particularly their distributors. They came out and said, "Well, it's not us, it's this, everything else." Which, if they'd let it blow over and just made a statement, okay, this is how much it costs and blah blah blah, it would have been all right. And it's in the Sun. It's tomorrow's chip paper. Who cares?
Well, actually, on that, one of the interesting points that was made on the evening when it was first tweeted was that Cloudwater actually said, "We've no idea how this bar got our beer anyway because they don't order from us. So we're currently looking into how they got our beer." So, and that's obviously where the distributor came in, that they're buying through a third party.
Yeah, because they can't do the minimum order, presumably.
Yeah. So they're having to pay a premium.
But that's a storage issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't have capacity to store, so they have to do as they can. They piggyback off other people's orders.
And that's the stuff we all missed.
That's the stuff that we missed. So
Before we get to the next beer, Justin.
We're going to go for the Magic Rock.
Go
on, Steve, announce his beer.
You may have heard in the background. Would be no surprise that Steve chose this one from
this
Justin's
was my
list.
choice, and when I saw it on the list, I had to have it. This is an original bottle of Bourbon Barrel Bearded Lady from Magic Rock, Imperial Brown Stout, ABV 10.5% with the number 2 on the bottle. So this was the second time they had done one of these big limited bottle releases after the very first Unhuman Cannibal.
Will you stop caressing the bottle and let Justin open it?
So excited, I can't put it down.
Let's give it a whirl.
I'm very excited about it. Why Justin paused that? Let's get into some of the now news, because we really do need to actually get on to the main part of the show at some point. So first up, Witchwood. They were voted the best brewery in the UK.
Well done.
Well
done.
How many awards are there for beer and breweries these days?
Okay, this was through an online public vote via holidaylettings.co.uk, which is a subsidiary of TripAdvisor. So 10,000 votes were cast in this particular thing that gave Witchwood the name of
I've
best
never
brewery.
seen these surveys. It's like when Channel 5 do their top 20 Star Wars moments, and I go, that's just wrong.
44% of the votes they took in that
What?
as well.
Really?
Yeah.
The people have spoken.
It can't have been an open vote. They must have just had a list of them as well.
My
How
God,
many
I
votes
can
did you say?
smell that beer.
Did you say
from here.
10,000 people?
10,000 votes were cast.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Cave Direct have launched cask beer for the first time in their history. They will now be distributing and selling cask beer, starting off with Tiny Rebel. So that's quite some exciting news.
I think it's great news.
As well.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming up soon, we've got the Goose Island London Block Party, 23rd of September in Shoreditch. This was quite an exciting one. Last week, the guy behind Craft Beer Hour, Tom, has launched a thing called Beer by Beer, which is going to be Britain's most extensive beer map, featuring every brewery, bottle shop and pub, every festival and tap takeover, every homebrew shop, brew club and bottle share. Will also welcome malt makers, distributors, snack producers and more.
It's ambitious.
It's a very ambitious
Incredibly
project, isn't it?
Very ambitious. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. It's great. The only question I have in my mind is, why?
I think the idea is if you go to visit an area,
Then
you'll
you
be
can
able
see
to
what's
pick
going on.
what's going on in that area. And for that, it's indispensable because
Yeah, I mean that's great.
I mean, how many times have you been to an area and go, I'm in, or you see it on Facebook, I'm in so and so next week. What do people recommend? You don't need that with there. In fact, while I was away, what I trawled this in all 3 cities, quite an interesting thing to type into Google was craft beer and the city you're in. It's amazing what it brings up that other people have done the legwork for you. So if you've got that seriously in there, you can just, because I think from what he's doing, he's relying on local input.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to be part of that anyway, follow them at Beer by Beer on Twitter, and if you go to his profile page, there's a link that you can go through that you can sign up to help input some data.
It does sound really interesting. But it's
I've already signed up on behalf of the Essex Bottle Share, so that we can get listed on there as what we think is the UK's longest running regular bottle share.
Well, it is.
It is.
It's
There's no think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
And the UK's longest running podcast appears every time.
It does. At least one of us does.
Yes.
At least.
Well, at one point.
Yeah. So final bit of news, and then we'll give this beer a go. For the second year in a row, Temper Tantrum are running a homebrew competition for the Manchester Coffee Festival, which is on the 4th of November. Prize is a brew day at Alphabet of flat white and a £100 tab at the brewery tap. Open to any kind of beer using coffee or coffee byproduct. Limited to 20 entrants but free to register. So if people are interested in having a go at that, there'll be a link in the show notes to where you can find out more about that. And that's the up-to-date news.
We're done.
We are done. We are closing on an hour into this week's show.
I think we just better mention as well, Roger Prott's giving up editing of the Good Beer.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yes,
That
He came out recently.
Yeah,
didn't
that was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people
And
sort of
not
question
retiring.
whether that's
Yeah.
He's not retiring.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But he's come out today. Did you see?
Really?
The, very much in favour. let's continue that. Very much continue that theme. In favour of craft keg being at beer festivals.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my!
That's the worst pools ever. The worst pools ever. On
Yeah. Shall we try?
Moving on.
Yeah. I am so excited about trying this.
Cheers. Cheers.
This smells lovely.
Bit of vanilla ice cream. Anyone else?
I've got soy,
Okay.
coconut. I've got loads of coconut in them.
Don't say
Nice.
that. What are you trying to do to me? Sherry, coconut?
We
I'm
had
going to
a
say marzipan next.
coconut bearded barrel aged lady or whatever it's called at the Prince, and that was delicious.
It's incredibly soft.
Yeah, it's really smooth. For me, I mean, I know there's no discernible nuts in it or anything, but it tastes like a Snickers bar. For me.
It's
pecan
certainly-
root.
Well, I think it'd have to be a dark chocolate Snickers bar. There's certainly
Yeah.
a heavy coating of dark chocolate on that. And
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm struggling to remember because when I had my one of these that I bought back in 2013, it was almost at the beginning of my journey into beer, and I didn't realise you could look after beer for more than 4 or 5 weeks, and I drank it quite quickly. So it was probably a very different beast to what it was back in 2013 when it was launched.
See, I think I remember reading something that Rich Burr said not to age this beer, but to drink it there and then. Which
This one,
yeah,
that surprises me.
which, considering it had a wax seal on the cap, I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
And made me put it away. That's
So
exactly.
you did the opposite.
Yeah, indeed. Just because, why have you said this? I want to give it a go.
Oh, I'm enjoying it. I'm getting a slight alcohol burn.
It's later. When I was
Yeah.
first drinking it, I was like, oh, the alcohol burn's not there, and then it's as I'm
Creeps up,
talking
doesn't
now,
it?
it's coming back. Yeah.
I think where the wax seal's on it, that's obviously taking out a lot of the oxygen going in, or certainly a considerable amount. So this is probably, if you've got one of these knocking around, I don't expect there's many left actually. Keep it for another couple of years, although this is tasting pretty damn good at the moment.
Oh yeah.
It's really smooth.
Yeah.
It's so drinkable. But that
Leads us nicely.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
Okay, so we were asking this week about cellaring beers, and we struggled to come up with the exact wording for this because initially we were like, do you know what you're doing when it comes to cellaring?
Why do you do it?
Why bother, or all the rest of it? And in the end, we settled on, do you buy beers with the intention of cellaring or aging them? With a simple yes or no response to this one. So we had 349 votes this week for one of the closest polls that we've ever run. So 48% of people saying yes, 52% of people saying no.
Brexit all over again.
So very, very close on the views there. So before we get into people's comments, we're going to bring Justin into his own at this point, because obviously, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we've kind of raided your cellar for these, but you do know how to keep a beer.
Indeed. Well,
how have you got to this? How do you know when to keep a beer, when not to keep a beer? How do you keep your beers? Is there any art, or is it just guesswork or magic?
I think there is a bit of guesswork involved. You're not going to be sure how every beer is going to keep. There's a few beers that you know about. There's a beer coming up a little bit later, I won't spoil it, that's a classic for aging. Well known, keep this for a long time. The Sierra Nevada Bigfoot barley wine I've had other earlier incarnations before, but I'd read that they keep and drink well around about the 4.5 to 5 years. So I was intrigued, and I'm very pleased that Matt chose it actually, because it was it proved rather well. But generally, if you have a beer that's got quite a bitter malt character, or is quite hot alcohol-wise, they're ideal. So anything that's boozy, they're ideal for keeping, because those flavours will mellow. Things that won't keep well are, well, depending on your point of view, things with spicy character up front that are made to be drunk spicy. I love Stingy Jack or Stingy Jack after about 2 years, because actually all that cinnamon has gone.
What about the pumpkin?
Yeah, the fruitiness is still there with the malt, and actually it's quite a nice beer. But I'm not keen on it before that. So anything with big hop character up front won't keep. The exception being this barley wine, and anything with subtle spices that are meant to be drunk like that. Now, you can let those fade into the background if you want to, and sometimes they come back. I mean, smokiness is. We had the Alaskan Smoked Porter that you remember at the Bob Share fairly recently. I think James brought one down. But that's the smoke comes and goes apparently in that beer. I've got a few of those that I'm trying, but as a general rule, anything over 8%, dark beers. Although Duvel keeps particularly well for 3 years, although I won't go beyond that. So pale beers go well. Saisons, strong saisons, braggots, barley wines, old ales, stouts, imperial stouts, porters, wee heavies, icebox, all those sort of things are pretty good beers to put away. And actually, it's just a question of giving it a go. Buy a lot and pull it out every now and then to see how it's going. Just buy a few and give it a chance.
That was my next question. So I could probably have guessed a few of those styles that you mentioned there. There's a few which surprised me, but there's a few styles there we could probably all guess. We'll put them away. But how do you know when to get the sweet spot before? And you know, the JW Lees, the second beer we had, that gone.
Yeah,
that wasn't tasty.
That was slightly over there, gone over the edge. Yeah.
So how do you know when to go? So you saved this beer for ages, you know, a bit like your mum and dad used to have best cutlery for when the Queen might turn up. Never gets bloody used. So how do you know when to pull that beer out?
There's a couple that you go, that's going to last, and you know it's going to last time. Certainly the stronger ABV ones, although except for the JW Lees, that clearly, and see that could be this particular bottle, it could be the way it's been kept prior to me getting it. I don't know. There's lots of factors that I've not got any influence over. So it could well be that someone else has got exactly the same bottle, pulls it out, and it's perfect because the aroma betrayed nothing of what was there.
The aroma was beautiful.
Yeah, both betrayed nothing as what was in there. Generally, I won't touch them at all for 3 years, and then if I've got a few, I'll pull one out, see how it's doing. Where are the flavours going? I'll take a note. I've got books at home. How they're doing? Where's it going? If I've got a few, keep it for a bit longer. But mainly 4 or 5 years for a strong beer. 9, 10, 11% is about right. 4 to 5. Anything, if you start going over 6, you're taking your life in your hands.
So what about the Fuller's Vintage Ales, which cost 2, 3, 4, even £500 now, and are now coming up 20 years now, aren't they? 20th anniversary of them.
The thing is, though, they've got pedigree, so
I don't want that.
You know that you're keeping it. You know they're going to age well. I'm not even going to be drawn on Marston's pedigree with that one. They've got history.
Yeah.
Effectively, you can do that. So you're going to keep them, but it's all a matter of keeping them. I mean, if you keep them in a fridge, don't. It will dry out the beer. Don't keep your beer in a fridge for longer than a year. Just don't do it. Keep them in. See, I keep mine. I have a brick shed, and I keep them in boxes, separate from each other, off the floor. Temperature range roughly between 14 and 8 degrees. That's probably my temperature variant throughout the year. And out the sunlight. Just don't touch it.
Just so I can make a note, is there a lock on that brick shed?
There is.
Damn. key code,
No,
fingerprint,
not quite.
retina scan.
Not quite. And upright. Very much. Keep your don't lay your bottles down. I used to have.
I used to lay my Cantillon bottles down, and I think we had a conversation online.
Can. You see, there's a certain argument that you can do.
But do they do the same as wine and start turning?
You need to start turning them. Yeah.
Because with old wine bottles, someone is employed in those sort of cellars to turn the bottles.
Because there's an argument that keeping the cork wet is better for the beer.
Right.
Not, but that's.
But I have now changed that. I've got all my Cantillon upright. Cantillon's 5%, and they age for 15 to 20 years, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple of bottles of Cantillon which are supposed to be drunk after I retire.
See, there's a really common misconception that the longer you age a beer, its ABV will increase. Well, that's complete bollocks. I mean, it may change, fluctuate slightly, but it's not going to change. I mean, it's going to change by a point of a degree.
So the ABV is unaffected by all the other things that can happen. It's not going to go up by a massive amount.
That won't affect it at all. No, but not by any stretch of the imagination. So there's no point even thinking, oh, well, it's 11% beer. By the time I get it back, if I keep it 5 cents, it's going to be 25%. And it's going to blow everyone's head. That's not going to happen. So don't even try that. What you will get from aging beers is it will bring characteristics out that you didn't know were there. You could find fruit esters coming through. You could find sherry and port notes are quite common, particularly in darker malt beers. And it's just experimentation. And just, I mean, if you find like the beer we're drinking at the moment, part of the fun is in the discovery. It's opening it up and going.
So speaking about this one, this was one you really wanted to taste, wasn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
And
I'm loving it.
so not disappointed.
Not disappointed. I wish I knew what I'd thought of it back in 2013. Because I've just gone back on to my Untapped, and it was one of my beers of the 12 beers of Christmas, and my Untapped thing simply said review coming soon. So I imagine I wrote or spoke about that beer
in something else.
In something else back then. So from what I can remember, it does taste like a completely different beer from when I had it the first time. Though.
So from what you're saying, Justin, if we go back to the question, you do buy beers with the complete intention of cellaring them and aging them.
I do. Yes.
What about you, Steve?
I've started to with some beers now. So, but mine is more with the intention of them making an appearance on a 12 beers of Christmas at some point. Hence why I've currently got about 18 to 20 bottles that are just sat in my cupboard, waiting to be chosen as one of the chosen 12.
So I've got a picture of like a football team being picked at the moment.
Where's your career? Because I used to like do the beer o'clock show, and I used to see you, and I used to see Mark's beers that he had stored on his shelf, open to the light, in a warm room. It used to make me blanch, really.
Yeah. Mine live in a cupboard in my kitchen, and they are... The cupboard does eventually go back to an outside wall, so the ones that are at the very, very back are the ones that I'm just aging for an unknown point in the future.
Right, so the ones furthest away. I mean, it's probably the kitchen is the room in the house that has the highest temperature fluctuation of any room.
It's also the only room which you probably have that sort of cupboard generally. Mine's in my kitchen.
Yeah.
Mine's in my kitchen as well.
Your wardrobes are fine. Back of your wardrobe with an outside wall, absolutely good.
My wardrobe backs onto next door though, next door's wall, so I have to switch the wardrobe round. But it's worth doing for my beers.
It would sound.
And when we get the kitchen done in the new house, the cupboard we're designing, that will back outside.
Mine's under the stairs.
Yours is in full display.
They are, but I think it's
you're
just
dark
enough.
We haven't raided that.
Yeah. So it's like a classic IKEA shelf, record sort of shelf with books and beers. But I think it's cool enough. That's certainly the coolest place in my house.
It's shaded as well.
And it is shaded, yeah.
So do you buy beers to age them, Matt?
No.
So
not intentionally.
How do your beers end up under the stairs then? What denotes a stair under the stair? what denotes a Harry Potter beer then in your
It's
in
just,
your house?
I think,
Dobby the house elf.
I don't purposely buy them. Like, I don't purposely buy them to age. It just kind of happens by accident a little bit, I think. So sometimes I think, I'll buy that for a special occasion, and then either that special occasion doesn't really come, or I kind of forget about it when the occasion does come, and they end up just being there for ages. So if I am buying beers like that, it will definitely be stronger and darker beers. Like, I'll go to the point of like these really hoppy like dippers and pale ales and IPAs. I'm not even that fussed about buying those in bottles and cans. I'd rather have it on draft. So I would certainly never age those, but I don't even really buy those to drink at home. I think when I drink at home, it usually is stronger, darker, and they just end up sitting there for a while just because I buy them when I see them and then just don't get around to drinking it. So although there is some stuff down there that's aged, it's not intentionally.
So you're an
there.
unintentional cellaring person.
Yeah, and I do what Steve does. So like once I have it and I do see it, I think, okay, well that does last a bit longer. That will go to the back. And I get a little bit OCD about it and start changing it
So
around.
when we go around Max next, we need to go to the back of the shelf.
Yeah.
Sorted. That's all the secrets out today.
Yeah. So something I've noticed is it used to be really easy to pick out beers that I wanted to cellar and I wanted to age. But with the predominance of pale ales and IPAs and the big dippers coming through, it's harder to find those beers, because if I go into beer shop, quite often they're front and centre. Look, here's our big beer range. I mean, we're here tonight, almost as where we were. We're here tonight, and
It's all
I
fresh.
couldn't find a beer on that shelf, even though there's probably 50, 60 beers out there that I would age. Which, once upon a time, I would pull one out without any problem at all.
It's probably the only one I would have seen, the Tilquin.
Yeah.
That's up there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe the XX bitter.
I'm thinking of UK breweries.
Oh, I don't think there's anything there.
It's all fresh.
Yeah.
Drink
Yeah.
fresh as fuck. Hops in your face. But you just don't want to age that.
It's interesting though, because what with the onset of the popularity of the can as well, and this is something that I have had some discussion on Twitter over the summer. I don't think a canned stout necessarily has the body and the feel that you get from a bottle. So just this week we've seen the release of I suppose the offspring of the beer that we're drinking at the moment. Magic Rock have released another version of Bearded Lady, a dessert edition of it, in 330ml cans. I'm less tempted to age those because
I don't intend to age it.
because it's a can.
Maybe 6 months.
And I'm still not at that stage yet where I think aging a can is a good thing.
Well, I think Justin already touched upon it with, well, he went a bit sciencey, didn't he? And if you're not getting any sort of oxygen to it, does it develop the same way as a beer in a bottle?
And the jury's out. I think it's too early to say, because with can technology, we don't
We're
actually
possibly a
know.
year into it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
So
you know, if you think about the first big dark canned releases, again would have been Magic Rock with the early Bearded Ladies.
Or the Imperial Salt, the Beavertown one?
I mean, there's some US
There's a couple of
ones.
those,
Yeah.
a couple of years old now.
Yeah.
I know I've got one from a couple of years ago now, but I had one recently and it wasn't that much of a discernible difference. I still enjoyed it, but it didn't feel like it changed.
I just want to say this is the biggest pour we're getting tonight, and it's probably the quickest drunk, which is very interesting.
Final thoughts on that beer then, because we have all drank
We've all
it.
finished it. I really, to be honest, I'd sort of forgotten it was a cellared older beer, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just found it a really drinkable beer. And if you blind tasted me, I probably would have gone 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
I would have pitched it as high as it was. It's really mellow and soft.
I think one of the reasons I sell beers is to share, because pulling out it's an event to pull out a beer that you've kept in your cellar, you've nurtured for a period of time, to share with people that appreciate good beer. It's almost like passing round the cigars, or at the end of an evening, or a well-cellared wine. It's it's a social event.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm sorry we couldn't find anyone to help you with that one tonight.
Well, I have to make do with the Essex Massive, don't I?
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we? I'll pass you the one I chose.
So, do you want to do this, or do you want to do the control?
The control.
I think we should do this one because I have a question that kind of links.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a joke of what we're throwing in now. What no one chose.
Curveball.
But
Well, I brought along as a bit of fun.
So
Okay. Interesting. Is this a good time to start saying what the viewers?
We can do, yeah. Why Justin's pouring this? Let's go through a few of the comments because I think a lot of what people said is going to lend itself to what we've been saying specifically about the dark beers.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring in one of the comments actually. Somebody mentioned White Hag's Black Boar, which do you remember when we had that the Irish Embassy? It was tasting very hot. Now that would give me a key indication that that's an ideal beer to sell.
We found that as well, though, didn't we? When we drank that on the Irish beer report that we did, that we said we didn't think because we had it pretty much fresh.
It was too fresh,
and we said it was too fresh, and we've got a bottle tucked away.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll pull that out soon. Actually,
was that us deliberately cellaring?
I think we did deliberately cellaring.
Well, let's move that around a bit.
Yeah.
I just
called it most yeasty.
all of a sudden I
Right into my
realised
glass. That's what Tom
I
does.
went to the brewery. I thought, this brewery.
Just did a Tom there.
Yeah. Okay, you poured the beer. So let's talk about the beer first, and then we'll go into some of the points. So we've got. I'm going to let you introduce this.
Okay, this is a Kernel IPA, 7.4% from, I think this is from 2012, 2011. It's a Stella. Stella hop, single hop, which of course is no longer called Stella hop, it's now the Ella hop. Now this is a control beer. It should be a beer of an example that why you shouldn't age hoppy beers. Now off the aroma, who's getting a malt bomb?
I'm getting barley wine off the aroma.
It's reminded me of beer number one.
Yeah.
It's reminded me a bit of Bigfoot.
See, this was the chance I was taking with the 7.4% Kernel because Kernel, this 7.4% is right on the threshold, and for the amount of yeast that Kernel put in, this could go one of two ways.
You know, it's lost its hop characteristic, but it's still got a really bitter finish to it.
I really like it.
This is bloody delicious.
Incredible.
So let's just have a little look at the bottle here because obviously they always say drink fresh on their bottles, don't they?
It's incredibly
best
fruity in the
before
finish.
09, 11, 13.
So it's a 2012 beer.
Best part of 4 years.
Yeah. So we're drinking.
So this is
It's a
4
5.
years.
That's best before, so it's a 5-year-old beer. Because that'd be a year. That's when Kernel were putting a year on their sell.
Bottle condition, store upright, pour gently, Justin.
Yeah.
If you prefer to leave the yeast sediment inside the bottle. So I'm not getting that fresh hopping, but
I get this like sort of fizzy fruit sweet
Yeah.
thing about
It's
it.
really sweet
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's almost
Like I said,
fruit fruit juice.
I think it's quite similar to the first one. It's got almost that style.
It's chewier than the first one. It
Yes.
is a bit chewy.
Maybe a little bit more cloying, but that's because we probably got all the yeast in the glass as well.
See, what I could have bought, I've got some very old beers that are bottle condition that would have been awful, but this had a chance of going one of two ways, and I think actually this isn't an IPA anymore. You couldn't define this as an IPA.
I wouldn't be able to say that's an IPA.
However,
blind tasting.
it's changed into something rather
It has
special.
changed.
So that's going to be interesting then, in terms of when we come to check this beer in on Untapped. How are you going to score this beer? Because you can't score on style because it's no longer that style.
I never scored on style.
You always score on flavour.
I just scored
I
how
don't
I
use
at the
Untapped,
time.
so that's easy for me.
I will never invite Justin again.
No.
He's attacked. How did we let that happen?
How did that
So,
happen?
Justin, my question before we open this, because I was actually expecting this to go horribly wrong, this beer, and obviously it hasn't. But like one reason that I don't purposely buy beers to age is because one, they're usually a little bit more expensive. So I want that. If I'm paying a lot of money for it, I don't want to take that gamble. And there is a gamble with Asian beers, right?
Indeed, yeah.
So what, as a percentage-wise, as a guess, what do you reckon? Do you lean more before that it actually works to age it or doesn't work from the gamble?
I've been very lucky that actually I would say probably on balance over the last few years, that's been one of the JW Lee's has been one of the worst beers I've opened.
Okay.
I'm quite lucky. I think I keep my beers very well. I think that's lucky. I mean, if you've had the beers that I brought along to bottle share.
Yeah, the brewery.
Not fun. Yeah.
Shut a bottle share down.
Yeah. But I've just been lucky. I think I tend to hit it, but I think it's intuition. You think this beer's ready, this beer's not, and sometimes I gamble, and it generally pays off.
See, I haven't got that. In my locker, I don't think I've got the intuition bit yet for cellaring beers.
See, I can go. I don't think I'd let this beer go anymore. I've got to drink it out. See, I went through those brewery beers that I had and brought them all out. Bang, bang, bang. Now, to be honest, I knew the tart would go a lot longer because of the style of the Flemish Reds last forever. But you've got to be careful with the brewery for the Flanders beers, because if it's not well brewed, it'll end up being just vinegar. It'll turn into malt vinegar quite quickly. But I knew that would last a while. But I thought I'm drinking through a brewery beers, go and just bang, knocked them all out, because I bought them around about the same time, and I bought them to sell her about 4 or 5 years.
Planning.
So it's almost like we started the bottle share just to hit Justin's sweet.
I think we did. So I mean, the first beer that I bought,
it's been good for us though.
Yeah.
the first beer that I bought to the bottle share was a Stone, I think a barley wine that I'd had
Imperial
for
Stout.
Imperial Stout. I think that I'd had for 5 years, and it almost hit around about 5 years prior to the bottle share.
That's not bad, yeah.
Yeah.
So come on, we need the opinions bit.
We do. Let's go through some of the people's comments. So Graham at Slander Graham. I had a bit of to and fro with Graham because he was saying that he does sell a beer. So I was actually trying to get some views on whether he does them intentionally or not. So this is quite a long one. This is a number of tweets put together. He does, but I'm not confident that I know which beers to age, so I end up drinking them. At least that's my excuse for a lack of willpower. I guess a history of successful aging would make me confident, but I'm sure I've had a few that taste a bit too funky for my liking. I guess I just went for stouts. I have these aging at the moment, but I don't know how long I can resist their charms. So kind of a little bit of guesswork going on there, but also and there's a bit of a theme through quite a lot of people said, a lack of willpower.
Yeah.
You buy a beer and you just can't resist it because it just sounds so good. Ian Sutton at Ian Sutton 12, only for certain impy stouts. Some beers I buy nowadays from certain breweries seem to have to be drunk within 4 weeks to be at their best. Now that's an interesting.
Well, that's become a lot more prevalent in the last 6 to 12 months, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Drink fresh, drink now, drink yesterday.
Yes,
That's definitely come up.
That's why I find it harder to find beers to age at the moment.
But that comes a little bit back to what we were saying earlier on about in the stuff we missed over the summer about the Omnipolo beers. Are breweries putting beers out too soon?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a show in itself that we'll cover in a few weeks.
Let's
time.
invite Mark Johnson on that one, because he did that post about licking hops, didn't he?
I'm sure there's no shortage of people that would want to come on that show.
To be honest, with a brewery like Omnipolo, there's not really an excuse, is there?
No.
Indeed. Kevin McLean at KJO2MCL. Yes, usually big stouts. Again, bit of a theme. People just tend to go for the dark stuff. Problem is that I will never know when the best time to crack them open is. Always hope I haven't missed the sweet spot. So,
Which is what
which
asked
is
earlier.
the
Yeah.
discussion that we were just
Sweet spot, isn't
having
it?
with Justin. Do you know when it is? And if not, how do you kind of work it out when the sweet spot is? Pete at Hoops and Hops. Yes, Imperial Stouts. Again, not those with crazy shit in. Drink them before the crazy shit fades too much and lambics get tucked away. So, Justin, is that something that when you've got a big impy stout that's got a lot of adjuncts in it, aging them, you're going to lose all those other flavours?
Not necessarily. Generally, there are a few characteristics that won't disappear. I was surprised actually how much the bourbon had faded in that beer, because that's generally a flavour, and certainly the vanillins in oak will carry on throughout. Those vanilla flavours will carry on. Coconut is another flavour that doesn't seem to dissipate, but anything with spices and hops, yeah, unfortunately, Martin, that tends to carry on. But anything with spices or any certainly big hop character, they tend to be flash in the pans and go fairly quickly. But yeah, it depends how you want to drink the beer. If you've had one and you go, do you know what, I don't like the cinnamon up front, give it 6 months, it'll go.
It's interesting because I've seen people will know that I'm not a massive fan of Christmas beers, and every time I start bitching about them at Christmas, there have been a few people say actually if you leave them a few years, all that flavour just dies off, and what you're left with is the underlying beer that is really good.
Yeah,
Take the point away from the beer though.
Yeah, but it depends. The thing is though, on a low ABV beer, it's just pointless because you're just going to be left with a base beer. And
I did put my bottle of the one that never really overdoes it with the Christmas spices and flavourings and that is the Shepherd Christmas Ale, and I did put my annual bottle of freebie away last year and didn't drink it with the sole intention of drinking it this year to see if just giving it a year change that beer at all. So, and that might be quite nice to do because that's an annual release. So it'd be interesting to get a bottle of this year's one and do it side by side as well. Anyway, coming back to comments, Guy Miller at BrewGuy _ fresh is best for me, and even the dark side. If brewer wishes to barrel age, I let them decide a length and barrel type to use. So that's an interesting one. He's saying that even despite the beer being already barrel aged in the brewery, if the brewer has decided that's the time to release it, then he's going to drink it there and then.
Yeah, but then you might think the breweries choose to release it because they need to free up the space for another beer.
Sorry, I just took a sip of that beer mid-sentence there. So I don't think we've actually mentioned what we're drinking.
So what we drinking? So this is the one I chose, wasn't it?
This was
This is
choice.
the much famed Thomas Hardy's Ale. This is a 2007 bottle, coming in at 11.7%. This isn't an Eldridge Pope bottle. This is one that was brewed by O'Hanlon's, who took over the release after Eldridge Pope passed it on. I mean, it's.
What am I getting on the nose? In my head, I'm getting marzipan, but maybe I'm wrong.
I get Twiglets.
Yeah, see, I can get Twiglets.
Bit of Marmite,
Twiglets dipped in Marmite. No, I'm definitely getting like a Marmite-y.
See, there's
beef dripping.
I'm preferring the flavour to the aroma.
I actually really like it. I know like there's a few faces wasn't too short at first. I actually really like it.
It's a really chewy umami.
I was only not too sure
because it's a shock, isn't it?
It was really sweet,
yeah,
and I wasn't expecting that at all.
It is smooth as hell. It's silky.
It is. I mean, but this is the only one. I mean, this actually tastes its ABV to me. This tastes like a boozy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this doesn't hide its booze.
What year is this?
Which is interesting because it's the oldest beer we've had tonight.
What year is it?
This is almost 10 years.
10 years old. It's a 2007. 11.7%. Yes, it's the strongest beer, but it's retained those booze in it. So this is why it's got a good few years on this. Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of bottles of this away. So
this is the one that everyone like aged though, wasn't it? Like this is
Hardy's Ale. They do like auctions of this stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
Decades ago.
When I first started seeing my wife down in Bath, it was there's a pub called the Crystal Palace in Bath that was an Eldridge Pope pub, and we could just literally they just used to sell it vintages and used to bring them out and drink them.
Yeah.
Little did I know the price that these bottles would command later on.
That's no different to Fuller's 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
You could pop into the parcel yard and at the end of the meal have a bottle of vintage ale from 2006 and spend 10 quid.
There was literally a point with the Fuller's
It was overnight.
where it was overnight. Where one day you could buy them all at a reasonable price, and then the next day all of a sudden it was like 200 quid for a bottle.
Yeah.
The day after your interview with John Keane.
Possibly.
That's the effect the beer club show had.
Absolutely. Okay, so a few more comments just to finish up the kind of.
this one is possibly one of my favourites.
Listener interaction. So Nate Southwood at NateDog27. Nope. Mostly because if I buy something, I just can't leave it. I have to drink it as soon as possible. Same with food. I've got no crisps left.
That's a classic. Just really bugging up.
That tickled me.
That is brilliant from Nate there. And then Son of a Gun at Son of a Gun. Yes. And then with the time invested in aging them, it becomes impossible to drink them.
Yes, and then you become that. When do I have it?
Yeah.
It's been there so long
And
now.
that's why I'm already considering that. I mean, I don't think I've probably got. I don't think I've got a massive cellar of beers, but I'm already sitting there thinking, looking at them and thinking, will I die before I get to drink all of these beers?
Yeah, and then who will have them?
Yeah. I bought them for me to enjoy.
I've had this discussion with Michelle, and I've got a few bottles I need to crack open.
Absolutely. I mean, you just got to get into them sometimes.
But I've had that thought on many an occasion. I go through it and say, will I ever get to drink this? And sometimes it makes me pull a beer out, and sometimes it makes me go, well, I reckon I'm going to live forever.
Be a great fucking.
Justin's going to live. You heard it here. Justin's going to live forever.
And if you
theory
don't,
that if you drink cellared beer that's preserved for a long time, it'll preserve your liver. This is not a workable theory.
and if it doesn't, it'll be a fucking great wake. So.
What about
Well,
Maybe that's it. Maybe
Treat
that's
the
what I need
cellar.
to put in my will. If at my time of passing there are any beers left in my cellar, they are to be drunk at my wake.
what a fantastic way.
They are to be shared at my
and then
wake.
you open the cupboard and he's left us green kid.
Some aged
And then we'll
drinking.
go. We knew he didn't like us.
So some great comments there from the listeners, and again, lots of people getting involved. We can't always read out all of the tweets. I'm very conscious that we have been going on for a long time this week. Let's get some. Let's just whiz round and get some final thoughts on aging. I think so. Justin, as our resident expert, I suppose if you had to give somebody a tip, what would it be?
Go for it. I think if you've got buy a few, age them, go for it. Get your conditions right. Keep it upright. Keep it out the sunlight. Keep it off the floor. Keep it in a stable environment. But go for it. Buy a few beers. Experiment. What have you got to do? You've got nothing to lose really, and everything to gain.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
If
I've got nothing to add to that.
No,
So-
neither have I. And
And
Matt
I'm
said he
happy
doesn't. He
If
doesn't
people-
age anyway. So.
If people have got questions that they want to fire at me, I'm on at 1970s boy on Twitter. I've been doing this a while. Yeah, I'm no expert, but give me a go. At least I've got some experience doing it.
Yeah, don't ask me instead.
No, I'll take Justin up on that offer as well. If you are looking to start a cellar, or if you've got some questions about what's already in your cellar, get in touch with Justin.
You might get the world's longest answer, but you'll get the answer you need.
I can do specifics quite well. But yeah, if you want to know what to age or some advice, I'm more than happy to dispense it.
So what was your favourite of the four? So take the Kernel out, which was the wild card. Out of the four beers we chose, what was your favourite?
Bourbon barrel bearded lady.
Okay, Matt?
I think this one mainly because I'm getting like the aged flavours.
Okay,
I
something a bit different.
Yeah, I think this one. Yeah.
Justin?
I'm really torn between the Bigfoot and this. I think the Bigfoot was everything that I hoped it would be at that point. I think that's spot on to be drinking now. So if you've got a 2013 Bigfoot, I think drink it. But this is so lovely.
I mean, I've drunk the Hardy's really quickly, which is the one I wanted and the one I chose, but I think the Bigfoot's for me. The Bigfoot was really nice. Really enjoyed that. And it was probably the biggest surprise.
That's a nice mix of.
Yeah. I think it was a nice mix. It was quite a different mix we chose, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think the aroma for me was the JW Lee.
Yeah, they went all to shit after that.
And final thoughts on the Thomas Hardy then?
It's gone.
Yeah, okay, so you really enjoyed it.
I did actually really enjoy it. It was the Bigfoot is my big, because it was probably the biggest surprise, but I'm not disappointed by the Hardy's Ale in any shape or form.
I found it very, very sweet. It's very, very sweet.
I think you need a few sweets of it almost, don't you, to acclimatise.
Yeah.
I think the Hardy's ideal in front of a huge roaring fire in the winter, feet up, snow falling, looking outside. I think this is your beer.
Yeah.
Plate of cheese with that as well.
My old man bought me a bottle when I was born in 1986. It was meant for my 18th birthday, forgot about it. Then went on to my 21st, forgot about it. Then it was meant for my 30th, still didn't have it. So I'm guessing when I'm 40, if I make it that far, that'll be the beer that I have on my 40th.
Well, yeah, I've got a bottle of vintage ale from Fuller's to share with Michael when he hits 18, and I'm really hoping he doesn't like it. Then it's all mine.
I hope my old man don't want this bit. None of my beer. It's all mine, mate.
Yeah, it's smaller than the vintage ale as well.
Yeah.
It's half the size. I think that's about it, isn't it?
I think that's about it. Yeah, I think Bitter and Lingus is going to be back next week because it's obviously the first show of a new season. So if you do want to get involved in the show, send us any questions, comments, or anything you want us to chat about. Use the hashtag Hopinions, and we will find it. Probably worth mentioning a massive thank you to Liquorice, where we've been recording this week's show, and it's a venue that we're going to start recording at a bit more.
Yeah, it's going to become our studio, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So thanks to the guys for that, and just to say as well that next week we'll be running a first birthday giveaway competition that's based on stuff that you've heard this week.
So you had to have paid attention.
You are going to have had to have paid attention to this week's show to answer next week's question to potentially win a prize.
Exactly.
So the most complicated prize competition ever that we're trying to run.
Probably the easiest question.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to mention finally, we are, for those people that have been badgering us about some new merch, we are currently running a new t-shirt campaign. There's a link to that in the show notes if you want to get one. Obviously, it's got a number of days left on it, so people need to get in and order those t-shirts before the campaign closes. Do not moan if it does not hit the minimum order and you don't get a t-shirt.
Oh, exactly. Don't talk to us about it.
Yeah, because many times people have requested it, so we're running it. It's out there, and again, the artwork by the amazing Clayton.
Exactly.
And
thank you very much.
Director, yeah, thanks for that. So next week, what are we doing next week? Do we know what we're doing? We don't even know what we're doing next week.
I've got no idea.
No, neither have
It's a
I.
surprise.
It's a show.
But we're recording every week again.
Probably be shorter than this week's.
Don't say that.
No, but it probably will.
So how long? Where we're at? How long was that show?
Where we're at right now, we're at about just gone over the hour and a half mark.
So if you had like a nice bottle at the beginning, you aged it, it's probably about right to drink it now.
Aged during the
I
show.
think you've summed that up.
This is probably not a drink-along show.
No, absolutely not. Let's.
On that note,
Final comment, Matt. Where can people find you again?
Half Pint Gen. Come down to Dawson Beer Day 23rd. Have a beer with me at 40 Foot Brewery. Yeah, tweet me, tweet back.
Excellent, great stuff. Justin?
At 1970s Boy, Get Beer, Drink Beer, blogspot, soon to be resumed soon.
About time.
After unfortunately burglary and breaking bits and bobs, but back on the road. And most evenings at the Spread Eagle in Brentwood.
Come on, people know where to find us.
I think so by now.
As well. So on that note, we'll be back next week. It's been a pleasure. It's been a great first birthday show. Justin, thank you
Good to
once
be back.
again.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
for turning
Cheers,
in.
guys.
Cheers, guys. Happy birthday.